Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Beyond the Evidence, the podcast where we dive deep into true crime cases, uncovering the facts and exploring the unanswered questions that keep us coming back for more. I'm your host, Marv, and I want to thank you for joining me today. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. And if you'd like to support the channel, you can find links to my PayPal and Cash App in the description. Now, let's get into today's topic.
Breaking all the patterns, facts and theories, clues and controversy. Join the journey, uncovering the mystery. This is Beyond the Evidence, where justice prevails, with Marv leading the way. Truth never fails. Now get ready for this live stream. Super chat, highlight your message. Don't fall victim to the irrelevance. Hit that like, share, subscribe to Marv's Beyond the Evidence.
Good evening, everyone. It's been a hectic day here on YouTube. You may not get a notification from this live because I have done 3 lives already today. The first one was regarding the missing child, Liam King, who was found deceased in a pond today. So there's 2 videos on him, and there's also a video on a missing person, Alexander Thornton, out of New York. Please take a look at those. And also a community post has gone out with a flyer for Alex. So if you could share that around, we would appreciate it. Today we're going to continue on with our Howard County cases. And tonight we will be talking about Destiny Pittman. So Destiny Renee Pittman was a young woman from Kokomo, Indiana, whose life was tragically cut short in a 2013 home invasion. In the previous episode, we talked about Chad Rouse and how it was also a home invasion for him, too. Like him, Destiny had a home invasion. She was 21 years old when she was fatally wounded in a residence on James Drive on February 7th, 2013. She was born on January 9th, 1992, and is remembered by her family and friends for the life she lived before that devastating night. For years, her murder remained unsolved, haunting her loved ones and the Kokomo community. But in 2013, a major breakthrough occurred. 2 brothers, Jesse and Joey McCartney, were arrested and charged in connection with the crime. According to court documents, the suspects allegedly kicked in the door of Destiny's home, confronted her, and shot her in the chest during what police believe was a robbery linked to drug activity in the home. So now, there we go. Now my background's out. So now this story is another story of how Howard County and the prosecutor, Mark McCann, has messed things up. Okay. Let's see here. So Destiny shared her home with her boyfriend and her 2 children and a female roommate. This paints a picture of someone who was building a life centered around family and relationships. Her home was described as modest, and she had pets, 3 dogs that were present the night of the incident. So, according to police in Howard County, in Kokomo, Destiny was involved in a small-scale marijuana sales, though it appears she had stepped back from that after inheriting some money. That detail suggests she may have been trying to shift her life in a new direction, possibly towards more stability. And police and investigators believe that home invasion was connected to the activity that her boyfriend was still doing. Destiny's life before that night was likely filled with everyday moments that define young adulthood, I mean. She was raising her children, maintaining friendships, and trying to make ends meet. Her death left a deep void in the community, and the long search for justice speaks to how deeply she was loved and missed. Thank you all for joining me tonight. Just want to come in and say hello, Mustang. Nice to see you. Jill, Karen, Miracle Hearts, Maria, nice to see you. Louise. All right. Before I continue on with Destiny's story, I just want to make an announcement today that while I was in Kokomo for Flint Farmers trial, I got to meet a wonderful woman, and her name was Helen Dodd Clark. She had been fighting cancer for a while. I got to go to her house and meet with her and her daughter and talk to them for over an hour. And sadly, today, Helen did pass away. So I wanted to take a moment and send my deepest condolences, thoughts, and prayers to Jamie and her family in the passing of Helen. She was a very nice lady. I enjoyed our time together, and I'm sorry that she lost her battle. She fought valiantly, and she always had a smile on her face when I saw her. Okay, back to Destiny's story. So there was two brothers, as I said, Jesse and Joey McCartney, that were arrested for the Red Rum of Destiny. And in 2023, the trial for Jesse started. Now, Prosecutor McCann relied heavily on witness testimony, but the physical evidence was notably thin, which ultimately led to Jesse's acquittal. Here's a breakdown of what was presented by the prosecution as evidence in this case. Now remember, this happened in 2013. A woman came forward in December of 2022, nearly a decade after the murder, claiming she had been with Jesse the night Destiny was killed. She said Jesse drove her to Destiny's home. He told her to stay in the car while he and his brother Joey went inside. She heard a loud bang and saw the brothers run out. Allegedly, Jesse was carrying a bag of weed and a handful of cash when he returned to the car. Police believe the home invasion was tied to the rug activity, as Destiny and her boyfriend were reportedly selling from the residence. Now, here's what we're getting at with these cases, okay? We're talking about each of these cases and what the prosecutor, Mark McCann, and the prosecutor's office has done with these cases. So what were the weaknesses in the case for the prosecutor? There was no DNA or fingerprints, no forensic evidence linking Jesse to the crime scene. There were ballistic doubts. An Indiana State Police firearms examiner cast doubt on the ballistic evidence. If you are a prosecutor and you are prosecuting a case, wouldn't you make sure that your witnesses are going to back up what you're saying? Why would you put on a ballistic expert that casts doubt on your evidence? It makes no sense to me. My mind is blown when I heard that. The cell phone records did not place Jesse or Joey definitively at the scene during the time of the murder. Former detective Lana Hunt, a former Kokomo police detective, testified for the defense, stating that the McCartney brothers were never considered suspects during her time on the case. The jury deliberated for less than 90 minutes before acquitting Jesse McCartney of all charges. The ballistic evidence in Jesse's trial turned out to be a major weak point in the prosecution's case and played a key role in the acquittal. So what did the ballistics examiner say? The firearms expert testified during the trial that cast doubt on the ballistic evidence presented by the prosecution. While the exact details of the examiner's testimony weren't fully disclosed, in public records, the implication was clear. The forensic link between the bullet that unalived Destiny and any weapon allegedly connected to Jesse was not strong enough to be conclusive. Let me say that again. The firearm did not match the bullet, basically, and the firearms expert could not state that it was a conclusive match. Why does that matter? Well, ballistics are a powerful tool in the criminal trials. Matching bullets to specific firearms, determining the distance, and reconstructing the events are important. But in this case, no weapon was recovered, no shell casings or bullets were definitively tied to Jesse, and the examiner's doubts undermined the reliability of the forensic narrative by the prosecutor. Miracle Hearts, this is exactly what I was thinking while researching this. Karen, oh my God, that's insane. So basically, Prosecutor McCann went to court with a witness that once again supposedly told them what happened in this case. But she didn't even come forward until 10 years later. There was no other evidence other than that in this case. The case was built more on speculation than hard evidence. And we've seen this also with Flint Farmer's case and others that we're going to talk about. So this isn't the only one. The cell phone records also turned out to be another weak link in the prosecution's case, as they could not put them in the area. The phone records showed that some potential suspects were near Destiny Pittman's home around the time of the murder, but not Jesse or Joey McCartney. So that tells me they did have other suspects that they could prove were in the area. However, Jesse and Joey McCartney weren't in the area. They couldn't even prove they were in the area. This detail was crucial because it directly contradicted the prosecution's theory that the brothers were at the scene during the crime. Combined with no DNA, no fingerprints, doubts from the ballistic expert, and a decade-long delay in witness testimony, the lack of incriminating phone data helped the defense argue that Jesse's connection to the crime was speculative at best. And the jury agreed because they acquitted him in under 90 minutes. What is everybody's thoughts on that? Was anybody else harmed? No. Destiny was the only one that had been shot and killed. Does remind me. Yeah, it does. Witnesses inside the home said the door was kicked in. Destiny confronted the intruders and was killed. She was pew-pewed in the chest. The intruders then searched the home, which police believe was for the rugs. Jesse was charged with 2 counts of felony murder, robbery resulting in bodily injury, burglary resulting in bodily injury, conspiracy to commit burglary, and felony burglary. These charges reflected the theory that law enforcement came up with, and the prosecutor, that Jesse participated in a violent robbery that led to Destiny's death. The defense team for Jesse built a strategic and effective case that ultimately led to his acquittal in under 90 minutes. And how did they do that? Well, I mean, come on. Lack of physical evidence, for one. No DNA, no fingerprints. Couldn't put the murder weapon in their hand. And the forensic witness testifying in the doubt that it was the gun. A police officer that investigated the case said they weren't even on their list. They couldn't put the brothers at the scene at the time. And the defense questioned the key witness. The defense scrutinized the reliability of the woman who claimed to have been with Jesse the night that Destiny was unalived. The fact that her testimony came 10 years after the fact, and she admitted to withholding information for years. The defense argued this made her account questionable and potentially motivated by external pressure or personal guilt. Mark McCann needs to do a better job. He's let so many families down by not doing his job as he was sworn in to do. I agree with you. 100%. 100%. Jesse's attorney, Jeffrey Elftman, called the 2013 killing a tragedy and stated, "I hope they find the real killer." This reinforced the idea that Jesse was not the person responsible and that the case lacked the hard evidence needed for a conviction. The witness that came forward in December of 2022 was a pivotal figure in reopening the cold case of Destiny Pittman's 2013 Red Run. And as I said, what she testified about is that she testified she was with the brothers that night. She had kept information to herself for nearly a decade, saying she thought the case would be solved another way and that she could no longer live with the secret. She said they drove to the house. The brothers went in. She heard a loud bang. She saw the brothers run out. And they were carrying a large bag and a handful of cash. Her testimony was controversial because she waited nearly 10 years to come forward, which raised questions of credibility. Her account was not supported by any physical evidence or any phone data. And the defense correctly argued that her story was unreliable and possibly motivated by guilt or external pressures. No, she was not charged for withholding evidence. Her testimony was the cornerstone of the prosecution's case, but the jury ultimately found it insufficient to convict Jesse McCartney, leading to his acquittal, as I said, in under 90 minutes. There were other few circumstantial elements that the prosecution leaned on, but none of them provided a strong forensic or physical link to the crime. In addition, Destiny's boyfriend was shown photos of Jesse and Joey McCartney. The boyfriend reported that Joey looked familiar and may have been at the house previously with another unknown associate. This was used to suggest a possible connection between the suspects and the victim's household. The informant told police that Jesse had changed his phone number after Destiny was unalived and still lived in Kokomo. Joey, the brother, was said to be living in Kentucky at the time of the arrest. While none of this was incriminating on its own, this detail was used to imply evasive behavior. And once again, the prosecutor, Mark McCann, overcharged in this case. Felony murder, 2 counts, robbery resulting in bodily injury, burglary resulting in bodily injury, conspiracy to commit burglary, and felony burglary. These charges were meant to reinforce the narrative of a planned violent home invasion. But the lack of direct evidence the jury decided to acquit him. And after reading all of this, I absolutely 100% agree with that jury. There is no way I could have convicted this man on these charges. Building a criminal case is like assembling a puzzle, where every piece must be legally sound, strategically placed, and persuasive to a jury. Prosecutors don't just aim to win. They're ethically bound to seek justice. Typically, a case is built through the investigative phase. Prosecutors work closely with police to guide evidence collection and ensure it's admissible in court. This includes physical items like weapons, fingerprints, DNA, and surveillance footage. Statements from victims, bystanders, or informants help shape the narrative and timeline. The evidence is then reviewed and a legal strategy is performed. Prosecutors vet all evidence to ensure it meets legal standards and won't be thrown out during the trial. Based on the evidence, they determine which criminal charges to file, balancing severity, probability, and legal definitions. In felony cases, they may present evidence to a grand jury to secure an indictment. Pretrial preparation. You have the discovery process. Prosecutors must share evidence with the defense, including any exculpatory material that could help the defendant. There's many motions and hearings where they argue to admit key evidence and counter defense motions to suppress or dismiss. Then after that, any plea bargainings happen. They negotiate with defense attorneys to resolve the case without trial, especially if the evidence is strong or the defendant is cooperative. If that doesn't happen, then you have the trial presentation, the opening statement, the direct examinations. They call witnesses to testify and build the case piece by piece. They challenge defense witnesses and expose inconsistencies. They have physical evidence like documents, photos, or forensic reports that are introduced and authenticated. And then they have their closing argument. They summarize the case and argue why the evidence proves guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Strong cases aren't just about facts. They're about credibility, clarity, and courtroom strategy. Here's what the evidence and reporting in many of these cases in Howard County from the prosecutor's office, Mark McCann, show. Severe staffing shortages. Howard County's prosecutor office is facing a critical shortage of deputy prosecutors. According to documents and state officials, the office needs 24 full-time prosecutors to handle its caseload. It currently only has 11, less than half of what's required. This shortage has led to delays in trial preparation, missed deadlines, and even dismissals of serious charges, not because of lack of evidence, but because the prosecutor office simply can't keep up. The courts themselves are overloaded with major jury trials, and prosecutors are stretched thin across multiple cases. In the case of Kevin Maddox, charged in Chad Rowe's murder, the judge dismissed charges citing the office's inability to prepare adequately due to the significant and ongoing staffing shortages. In other cases, such as Destiny's, reliance on weak or delayed evidence. In cases like Jesse's trial, the prosecution leaned heavily on a single witness who came forward a decade later. This suggests that some cases are being brought to trial without strong foundational evidence. This could possibly be due to the pressure to resolve cold cases or limited investigative resources. This isn't just a Howard County problem either, everyone. The Indiana Prosecuting Attorneys Council has warned that the state is facing a 40% shortage of deputy prosecutors statewide, with only 660 out of the 1,100 needed. That means Howard County's struggles are part of a broader crisis in public safety infrastructure. What is the bottom line of this? The combination of understaffing, overloaded courts, and cases built on shaky or delayed evidence has created the perfect storm. It's not necessarily about incompetence, even though I believe that has a major part to do with it, but it's about a system that's under-resourced and overwhelmed, making justice harder to deliver, even when the stakes are life and death. Yes, that is a big shortage. And I don't believe Indiana is the only state that is having these issues. But those are the statistics that I found for Indiana. A lot of these cases that Mark McCann are bringing up are cold cases. And there's been pressure from the community to solve these cases. And these prosecutors feel compelled to reopen long unsolved cases using witness testimony that surfaces years later, often without corroborating physical evidence. Their limited detectives and forensic analysts mean evidence isn't collected or processed promptly. Courts with inefficient scheduling systems experience delays that weaken witness memory and reduce the reliability of evidence. And there's a heavy over-reliance on witnesses. We all know that the human memory is fallible, especially after long gaps. We don't remember things like we did right after it happened. Those memories go away. Without physical proof, these accounts can crumble under any cross-examination. How can these counties and Howard County and Mark McCann fix it? Well, according to the Effective Criminal Case Management Study, here are proven strategies. Invest in case flow management. Courts that resolve cases faster use structured scheduling, limited unnecessary hearings, and reduce continuations. Every continuance adds 3 weeks to a case. Every hearing adds 2 weeks. Counties should adopt digital case tracking systems and enforce stricter timelines. Howard County, for example, needs more than double its current number of prosecutors to meet demand. State level funding and recruitment incentives can help fill these gaps. They need to expand forensic capacity. Delays in lab results or autopsy reports can stall cases for months. Investing in regional forensic labs or partnerships with universities can speed up the process. Create cold case review units. These specialized teams focus on building cases with modern standards of evidence, not just old witness statements. They prioritize cases with DNA, digital records, and new forensic techniques. Community-based witness support. Witnesses who come forward years later often do so out of guilt or trauma. Counties should offer legal and psychological support to help them testify reliably and safely. My question is, if this witness came forward after 10 years because she felt so guilty, why didn't her information match the evidence? Why weren't the brothers known to be in that area at that time? Why was there no ballistic match on the gun? Why is she so guilty? Is she trying to point out that these two individuals are guilty, knowing all along that it is someone else? Was she trying to protect someone else? These are the questions that I have. Justice delayed isn't just justice denied. It's justice distorted. Counties that want to fix this need to treat criminal case management like a public health system. Proactive, well-funded, and data-driven. Otherwise, they risk repeating the same cycles of acquittals and dismissed charges, leaving victims and the community without closure. And that is what we are seeing in a lot of these Howard County cases. One of the things that they can do to help the situation is to have one person start the case and finish the case. They have 11 people to do this. Don't arrest somebody and bring charges until you have reviewed all of the discovery. Well, discovery is based on after the charges, so I guess you have to bring the charges in order to find out what the defense's discovery is. But you can know the case from your side in and out before charges are brought. Victims' advocates need to be brought in. These families are going through these trials without any kind of advocate that stands up for their rights. They're going off of television reports because the prosecutor is not contacting the family members of these victims and talking to them. So what can Howard County do with the limited number of deputy prosecutors? They can do something that's called charge screening with hard thresholds. This requires at least 2 independent corroboration points for delayed witnesses. Example, digital location data, video, admissions, or physical evidence before filing violent felony charges from cold cases. They can triage and use the vertical assignment. Route homicides, shootings, and serious DV to vertical prosecutors. Pool remaining staff in a horizontal unit for high volume felonies to stabilize the calendar. Early open discovery by default. Standardize early disclosures and a standing weekly discovery huddle with detectives to close gaps before arraignment. Late discovery drives, delays, and dismissals. Use short, standardized credibility memos, timeline gaps, incentives, prior statements, and pair with practical support via victim services. Adopt a no surprise continuance policy. Continuances require written case-specific cause. Set firm readiness conferences 2 weeks pre-trial with a checklist. Witnesses confirmed, exhibits marked, motions decided. Low-cost digital evidence workflow. Even with basic tools, a single intake form for all media sources, chain of custody tracking, and a 72-hour deadline to request fragile footage. But the most important thing they can do is bring stronger cases to trial. Make sure you have at least 2 non-overlapping sources supporting identity. Have DNA prints, gun, tool mark, submissions logged, expected timelines documented. Have the cell tower records requested, geofence considered, social media preserved. Document statements or third-party admissions assessed for corroboration. And contact reliability plan with backups for victims and witnesses. Make sure that their recorded statements are organized. Treat late testimony as a lead, not proof. Avoid overcharging that invites compromise acquittals. File the most provable offense supported by the strongest evidence and add counts only when they tangibly increase sentencing exposure and leverage. These are some of the things that Howard County and Prosecutor Mark McCann can do to help with these many, many, many cases. And in this instance, instead of just flying by the seat of his pants and bringing in a witness that said, oh, I was with them, we went there, they went inside, I heard a loud bang, and they ran out, they would know if they had a true case to bring to trial. Stop bringing this flimsy crap as evidence. If you don't have the evidence, do not bring the case to trial. Because as in the Chad Rouse case, now that man who was allegedly the one that pulled the trigger can never be tried again because of double jeopardy. I agree, discovery can be overwhelming if you have a short time to process it. But the fact that Mark McCann and his office has this discovery for a lengthy time because these cases keep getting continued, they should be able to look at it and process it and know what they have. How long did they have the discovery for the Chad Rouse case? Charges were dismissed the correct way. He had time to look everything over before he brought charges again. Why did he pull the trigger so quickly when not everything had been reviewed? And in Destiny's case, you had a witness that did not come forward for 10 years. You did not have a forensic analyst that said that the bullet and the gun matched. You had a freaking law enforcement officer that investigated the case that testified for the defense saying they weren't even there. There's no evidence they were there except for this witness. Stop bringing these cases to trial if you don't have the evidence. Because what you're doing is you're getting acquittals and dismissals, and you're letting these families down. The families who are so searching for the truth and for justice, you're letting them down by doing this. And it seems to me that he doesn't care. Mark McCann does not care because he keeps making the same mistakes over and over and over again. Something's got to give. What is going on with this man that he's just bringing these willy-nilly cases to trial in hopes of a conviction? Does he not realize what he's doing to each and every single one of the families and the loved ones and the friends of the victim when he does this? These families can never get true justice now. And the thing that bothers me the most is this, especially in the Destiny Pittman case. It goes back and it reverts back to Tabitha Shuck Rain's case out of Tipton. Once a prosecutor brings an individual to trial and an acquittal is determined by the jury, they don't go back and reinvestigate the case and say, okay, what may we missed? What did we miss? They truly believe in their thought process that that is the person that they believe committed the crime, and the case is then closed. So no other suspect will be looked at in Destiny's case or Tabitha's case unless additional information or evidence is placed in the prosecutor's lap. O.J. Simpson did it. Now, you might be like me and believe he truly did do it, but he was acquitted. Are they out there looking for other suspects? Have they ever? Nope. Case closed. Casey Anthony. I believe she did it after looking at the evidence, but the jury did not think so and they acquitted her. Are they out there looking for additional evidence or other suspects? Nope. Case closed. So many times this happens. And the ones that suffer for it are the victims' loved ones, family, friends that knew them personally. They are the ones that suffer. Sometimes prosecutors separate themselves so far from a case they lose their humanity. I agree. They need to step back and say, especially in these old cases, do I have enough? Have I brought everything I can to make sure that I have a guilty verdict? If your answer is no, and that you're just throwing on these additional charges to hope something sticks with the jury, don't bring it to trial. Wait for more evidence. Because every time you get an acquittal, you let down the victim, the family, and the community. And then no one in that area has any faith that you can do anything right. And that's what's happening in Kokomo and Howard County. They have no faith. The community has no faith that Mark McCann can win a case. I've been talking with siblings of Brandy Bradley. They're worried. Their case is coming up. Their trial is coming up, and they are very worried because of the track record that Mark McCann has in these murder cases. I don't blame them. I would be worried if I were them too. How do we fix it? We make sure that other individuals, when it comes time for picking a prosecutor, we make sure to support other people to run against Mark McCann. And you vote him out of office. And if you're truly sick of what he's doing, you start complaining. You start writing letters to your legislators and your governors and everything else, go up the chain. That's the only thing you could do. You either have to vote him out or boot him out. But as I said in the last episode, I can't do that for you. I can give you directions. I can give you help and assistance in who to contact. But I mean, at this point, Mark McCann is Republican. Get a united voice, contact the Democrats, and ask them to find an opponent for him to run against. And get him the hell out of there. What are you going to lose right now? Nothing. Because things are so bad. You have no faith in him at all. So I want you to remember a few simple things. It's time to change. For the community, I know it's difficult because as soon as you are pointed out, you're hounded. And that's not right. But you have to come together as one voice and start demanding change. And remember, justice isn't just about verdicts. It's about trust. It's about closure. And it's about accountability. She deserved that. Because after the one brother was acquitted, the second brother charges were dismissed. McCain knew that he didn't have a case. And he actually did the right thing by dismissing the charges on the second brother. But Destiny deserved better. Her family deserved better. And Howard County can do better. If you care about justice in your community, share the stream. Talk to your local leaders. Demand reform. Because justice delayed isn't just justice denied. It's justice abandoned. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Please like, share, subscribe. Add a comment below the stream. And stay informed. Stay engaged. And let's keep pushing for change so that families like Chad and Destiny's get the justice they deserve. We become way too divided in these types of cases. Everyone needs to come together and get these cases solved for the families. I agree 100%. And that's a perfect way, Ronald, to end tonight's live. Demand change. Come together. Demand reform. And get these cases solved the correct way. And get justice for these victims and their families. Thank you for joining me tonight. Next week, we will be talking about the Brandy Bradley case and what is expected, as that trial is supposed to be starting, I believe, next month. They definitely can do better. Absolutely. Please take the time after this live stream is over to go and make a comment underneath the video of love and support for Destiny's family, for Chad's family and for the Howard County community. They need our support and our love, and we are dedicated to keep bringing these cases from this county to prove that things need to change. Remember, justice matters. And we're going to start demanding justice the right way in Howard County. Have a good night, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow for those of you that are following the transcripts from the Richard Allen case out of Delphi. Bye. Have a good night.